It's work to do as a people, and it won't go away. We're the chosen, called by heaven to do the work that must be done. Alive with faith and purpose to bring our people together as one. Chorus, you know it's time to stand like a people. You know it's time to stand like a people today. It's time to stand like a people. Stand up and say, no more wondering, we are finally on our way. Here we go. Our children need to see themselves in a much more positive light, to see that nothing is impossible when they try with all their might. We must build the schools that will teach them. They are children of kings and queens. It's up to us to save them. Let us work and build and sing. Chorus. You know it's time to stand like a people. Rock it. You know it's time to stand like a people today. It's time to stand like a people. Stand up and say, no more wondering, we are finally on our way. Our mothers and fathers and elders, they have given us all they can. They stood up and fought to protect us in this hard and bitter land. Their trials must give us courage, every woman and man. None are free unless all are. We pledge our life to take back our land. You know it's time to stand like a people. You know it's time to stand like a people today. It's time to stand like a people. Stand up and say, no more wondering, we are finally on our way. Woo! All right. That little baritone I tried to sneak in there, thinking about my main man, Paul Robeson. All right, and we got that. How about we say we're going to do This Little Light of Mine. That's on page 23. Okay, we got it. Man, this is a mass choir. A must choir. A ma'at choir. All right, here was some in words.
Everybody involved.
Here we go. All right. We're going to go straight through it like that. This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. Oh, this little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine all the time. Verse 2. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, everywhere I go, come on now, I'm gonna let it shine.
Yes.
I said, oh, everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine all the time. This morning that will say, this morning that will say, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, this morning that will say, I'm gonna let it shine. This morning that will say, come on now, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine all the time. At work, at school, at play, I'm gonna let it shine. Well, at work, at school, at play, come on now, I'm gonna let it shine. At work, at school, at play,
every day,
I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine all the time. Even in my home, I'm gonna let it shine. Even in my home, come on now, I'm gonna let it shine. Even in my home, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine all the time. One more time. Even in my home, come on now, I'm gonna let it shine. We'll say now, even in my home, bring it home now, I'm gonna let it shine. Even in my home, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine all the time. That's right. Thank you, Paul Robertson. Mama Jasiri. Baka D over here. I heard rock it down a little bit. Baka D. Wait a minute. Man, come on. Here's a man that needs no introduction. Ladies and gentlemen.
I'm a rat tap. This Sunday, I've decided to do my historical tribute on a place, but more specifically an institution. That institution has provided hope and served African Americans for centuries. This institution is also the place I'll be traveling to in 5 weeks to further my education as a young black male. I've actually visited this institution prior to enrolling and walked across the quad, feeling all the history around me and knowing that I have a lot to prove. That institution is Howard University. As one of the first and foremost HBCUs in the world, Howard University's original purpose was to serve as a theological seminary for African American clergymen seeking education. This idea was first conceived by the First Congressional Society of Washington, but the idea changed and developed to include a provision for establishing a university. Although Howard was founded in late 1866, the university charter was enacted by Congress and later approved by President Andrew Johnson on March 2nd, 1867. The university was to be named after the Civil War hero, General Oliver O. Howard. My Bible finds it ironic that an HBCU, one of the first, be named after a white man. However, General Howard was both the founder of Howard University and a commissioner of the Freedmen's Bureau, Howard University's biggest financial supporter at the time, and an organization that aided African Americans in assimilating and adapting to life after slavery. Within 2 years of being founded, Howard University consisted of colleges of liberal arts and medicine. By 1926, Howard was composed of 8 schools and colleges, although none were nationally accredited, a student body of around 1,700 students, and a budget of around $700,000. 1926 was also the year Dr. Mordecai Wyatt Johnson, Howard's first African-American president, was appointed. Now, by the time Dr. Johnson retired in 1960, about 34 years later, Howard had a budget of $8 million and 10 schools and colleges, all fully accredited. The university had expanded to accommodate 6,000 students, along with an addition of 20 new buildings and a greater number of faculty, including many contemporary black scholars. Also during that time, 1955 marked the inauguration of graduate programs that had the authority to grant PhDs. Since then, Howard has grown even more, with a student body of around 10,000 students, an endowment of more than $450 million, a campus size of 500 acres, and a large alumni network. I can't tell a single black person I'm going to Howard without them mentioning a cousin, an aunt, or some relative that attended Howard. Many of the people have even given me contact info in case I ever need something from an alum who lived near DC. I remember talking to someone, for those of you who do know Mama Rakita. She's a teacher here at Ilamade. I remember she mentioned she had a relative and an alum living in New York, and I was really taken aback when she told me that if I ever needed anything or a place to stay, that alum had my back. That was really something for me. And that just goes to show how Howard and HBCU serve as instruments through which African Americans can help one another succeed and thrive. Case in point, the university graduates more African Americans with PhDs and more African American doctors than any other institution in the world. Notable alumni include Supreme Court Judge largely responsible for the ruling in the Brown versus Board case, Thurgood Marshall. Distinguished novelist whose book Song of Solomon I've read at Bishop O'Dowd, Toni Morrison. Famous actor from The Cosby Show, I'm sure you all know, Felicia Rashad. Notable surgeon involved in the first program to preserve and store blood plasma, whose dorms I would be staying in, Dr. Charles Drew. Interesting enough, I'll also be studying medicine at Howard like Dr. Charles Drew. Although not every building is named after an alum, they are named after a lot of well-known famous ancestors. One building I would be studying in is named after the famous orator, editor, and abolitionist who referred to July 4th as, and I quote, "a thin veil to cover up crimes which was disgrace a nation of savages." Frederick Douglass. And there's also one other alum I'm sure you all know. Frukin was a community churchgoer and member of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Alpha Chapter, our very own Baba Shango. Thank you.
All right, this is the time in our service for our litany of sacrifice. It is the time when we share our gifts that just keep on giving. And today we want to recognize that you'll see all the bags in the back in the refrigerator outside. It's not because we just being country. It's because our kitchen is in the process of being renovated. But guess what? One of the main building materials of this kitchen renovation is faith. There is as much faith going into the build of this kitchen as is cement, brick, and mortar. Okay, so and we recognize that the resources that we give, we stretch them as far as they possibly can go. We got Abe Lincoln and what's her name? The one, the bald ones, and the one with the big old wig on with the little flip under in the back, whoever it is. We just be having them screaming and yelling because we are stretching these dollars as far as we possibly can, right? And that's good. We like torturing them, but we don't like the. But we just know that whatever donations you give us, we are doing the best we can to support the work of this community with them. And folks at home, don't feel shy. You can indeed go to our website, wosecommunity.org, and provide us with a donation. And you can even earmark it for the kitchen project if you would like. We wouldn't be mad at you. All right, so today's reading comes from the book of Ketty. And it says, page 50. It is passage number 2 in the Hosea, which is one of our foundational texts for the community. You should have a Hosea close to you. And the Hosea is also available at Marcus Books. I know. You know what? We can't forget the folks at home. All right. So passage number 2. Let's read it together. Follow in the footsteps of your ancestors, for the mind is trained through knowledge. Behold, their words endure in books. Open and read them, and follow their wise counsel. For one who is taught becomes skilled. Do not be evil, for kindness is good. Make the memory last through love of you. Thank you. And so you have already fulfilled one of the instructions. You opened the book and read the words of the ancestors, and you are allowing them to teach you because you are following their wise counsel by following in their ways and providing support for your spiritual community. Additionally, it says, make the memory of you last through love of you. And what better memory to leave than a supported school and spiritual community? So, at this time, it is time for our litany of sacrifice. Please get one of the worship companions and songbooks. It's a black binder, and it will be near you. And for some odd reason, we only have like 4 of them out. If I could snitch one from someone, and thank you. And you can share on page 19. I'm sorry, on page 15. And we'll all stand and recite the litany of sacrifice. We have Kara and the Angelia over at the altar, ready to light the candles. And we'll start together. Save us, O Holy One, by your name. Vindicate us by your might. Hear my prayer, divine protector. Listen to the words of my mouth. How can we repay the Holy One for the gifts that have been given to us? We will lift up the cup of salvation and call upon the God of our ancestors. We will fulfill our vows to our Creator in the presence of all our people. Gladly we bring our sacrifices to you. We will praise your name, O Amun-Ra, for it is good. Umoja, unity. We shall strive to maintain unity in the community, in the family, community, nation, and race. Ujima, collective work and responsibility. We shall build and maintain our own communities together. Our brothers and sisters' problems shall be ours to solve together. Nia, purpose. We shall make our collective vocation the building and developing of our community and the restoration of our people to our traditional greatness. Altogether, Imani, faith. We will believe with all our hearts in our God, our people, and in the righteousness and victory of our struggles. Amun-Ra. So as we get our last few donations collected, I will invite you to come forward to the altar, the prayer. Okay, the kneeling pads have been laid at the altar. If you would like to come forward to the altar for prayer. And right here, right now, I invite you to turn within, recognizing your connection with the Most High, recognizing that there is only one Most High. It has many manifestations, but there is only one Most High God. And we give thanks for the brilliance of the Most High. We give thanks for our connection with it. Most High, Holy Spirit's ancestors, we come to you humbly today, asking that you hear our prayers of thanksgiving. We thank you for all of the wonderful resources that you have put in front of us, not just the natural resources that we experience every day, the sun that's shining and the wind and all of those beautiful things, the scent of the flowers that we don't even have to ask for, that you just give us as a daily gift. We thank you for the infinite nature of your daily gifts. We thank you for our knowledge of you. We thank you that our understanding of the love that you have for us exists in abundance. We appreciate your abundant love. We know that it is infinite, that it is unceasing, and it is far-reaching and all-healing. We thank you, Most High, for all of the wisdom that you give us directly and the wisdom that you instructed the ancestors to leave for us. We ask you, Most High, to support us in our work. Help us do the best that we can to do the work that we know you want us to do. We ask you to watch over each and every student in this school. We ask you to keep them safe from any possible harm or concern. We ask you also to watch over the teachers and keep them safe. We know that there's so much going on out in the world, and they do such hard work, and our children are so precious to us, Most High God. Help them to understand that they are loved and that they are supported, and if they ever need anything, that we are here for them. Most High, please help those of us who are lost, who are wandering, who are searching for something. Help them to understand that there is a way, and that way is a direct path to you, Most High God. Help them to understand that they can always have a healthy relationship with you. They don't even have to ask, that you're already there. All they have to do is turn their hearts towards you. We thank you for these sacrifices that have been made here on your behalf and on behalf of the community. And we ask you to help us stretch these offerings as far as we possibly can and help us to multiply them. We know that regardless of what numbers show up in the basket, we know that you are our unceasing, unfailing source and supply. And we open ourselves to receive your gifts. We thank you for all that you give us, Most High, Holy Spirit's ancestors, and we anchor our words by saying, Ashe, Amen, Ashe. All right. And as we bring the lights up, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our speaker. She's someone that you've heard before, someone that you know pretty well, and someone who is constantly doing a bunch of different stuff. So without further ado, I introduce myself, Sister Tracy. Okay. See, that's why we need that filler music. I have this vision for the community that we have a full band, right? And our brother Dave Goodlett, Dave Goodlett, he's on the bass guitar, and I come up and the song is like, we want the funk, you know, da, 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 and the stones of fire is on fire. I can see it. That's right. Then that give me a minute to get up here and get myself situated. And that said, I give thanks to the Most High, the Necheru, the Orishas, the ancestors for the guidance that you have given me in preparing this message. I hope that the message that I bring today is exactly what people need to hear. And I'm knowing that I'm doing my best to deliver it, so hopefully they enjoy it. Ashe. Well, the title of my message today is Let Your Motto Be Resistance. Let your motto be resistance. Now, here in Oakland, aside from our general African history of resistance and freedom fighting, we have a strong history of resistance right here in Oakland, and not just right here in Oakland, but here in Wose. A number of folks in this community have been and are fighting for the liberation of our people in various ways we don't even know about. And some of us do know. We know that Baba Tai was a member of the Republic of New Africa. We know that from looking around that there are a number of folks here who were instrumental in helping Wose get on its feet. And this is a resistance movement. We resisted the tyranny of the public education system by providing education in a safe space to be for our children. And we need to be aware of that. So Wose, tell me a little bit. I'm going to ask you now. This is participatory. Tell me a little bit, or call out the name of a freedom fighter that you admire, and give me one short sentence, short now, on why you admire them. Anybody. It doesn't matter. Any freedom fighter. We don't do. Maya Angelou, all right, for her resilience.
Paul Robeson for his strength, and excelling out and striving for excellence in every field in which he tried to, in which he worked in.
Ashe, Paul Robeson, thank you. Anyone else? We got plenty.
William Jacqueline was the first African-American firefighter in Hartford, Connecticut. Also one of my ancestors.
Nice.
It's been a while since that he was the first, after he became a fireman, no other African-American was allowed to be a fireman for 50 years.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's like, and so it took a while, and he actually distinguished himself at a major fire at a train station where he had to retire.
Thank you, sister. Any others? One more.
Martin Delaney. I'll just read you, mention a quote said about him that he was unapologetically African.
Ashe.
He was contemporary of President Douglas, but he was at that time he was unapologetically African.
That was saying something. That was saying definitely saying something. So the book that I'm holding is called is one book called Let Your Motto Be Resistance. It's a book of portraits, and it was organized by another revolutionary, a woman who is my absolute one of my greatest role models, Deb Willis. She's a curator, and she's the director of the photography program at NYU. But there are beautiful images of folks like Jack Johnson, who we all know, right? Gordon Parks, who is one of my favorite photographers ever. Eartha Kitt, who was just who was a real diva, because she also stood up against the tyranny of the government and was, blackballed. And they tried to ruin her career, but they couldn't stop her. Right? Mahalia Jackson, she sang the songs by which the struggle was, that sort of put energy behind the struggle. So a lot of people turn to her music and her words for comfort. So, and we also have, of course, Malcolm X. And the last one I'll show is Judith Jameson, who is the director of Alvin Ailey. She took over when Alvin Ailey passed. But just her beauty and her poise always inspired me as a child. And she was definitely very unapologetically Black, very unapologetically African, very proud of herself. And I remember watching her and saying, I want to be like her when I grow up. So I'm going to pass this book around, and you can take a look at it if you would like. So we understand the beauty and the value of that energy, that spirit of resistance. And what about the unnamed freedom fighters and the unknown freedom fighters? So Sister Rahima mentioned her ancestor being a firefighter, and we may never have known about him had she not said anything to us about him. What about those in our families who stood up against the tyranny that they were experiencing, whose names may not end up in a history book? We do our historical tribute so that we make sure that we remember these folks and that we can learn from the lessons that they teach us. I think about my great-grandfather, and look, my mom and dad are coming in just now. And I just started talking about my great-grandfather, Ben Harley Sr., who was the father of 13 and who went to work for a white man, according to the story told to me by my great-aunts. He went to work for a white man on his farm, and the man hired him because he thought he was going to bring his 13 children to work on the farm. And when he got there by himself, he said, my great-grandfather, well, where are your children? And my great-grandfather said, my children are going to school. Right, I don't know what your kids is doing, but my children are going to school. And that was during a time when they definitely needed the money. They were not wealthy people. They were not wealthy people. Not to mention, defiance of any type back then could very well carry a heavy price. We also have my uncle Junior, who in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, I'm told slapped a white man because the man was acting dodgy in his dealings with my grandmother about a sewing machine. And I was told that later they had to hide him under the floorboards when the white men came for him. So speaking your mind and speaking and standing your ground often takes courage, right? One of the books that I used to put together this message is The Teaching of Ptahhotep. If you don't have this book, get it. This is an absolute must. It is a requirement. And every child should have their own copy of this book. Just like some people run out and buy a child a Bible as soon as they are born or as soon as they get to a point where they might start reading, this book needs to take over, right? This book needs to take over. Many in my parents' and grandparents' generation learned to read by reading the Bible. And the book of Ptahhotep can be that for our children. It can be a teaching tool as well for our children. So on page or speak truth into power have to stand up in the face of great repercussions, right? So there may be, again, a heavy price to pay. And it's not always easy to find your voice or feel comfortable using it. The choice of silence and inaction or acceptance is often before you. And sometimes it can feel like the easier and more accessible choice, sometimes. But we know that typically that's going to be that noise, that thing that's just picking at you, gnawing at you, right? That truth is going to keep bugging you until you do something about it. So in a discourse on colonialism, which was written by Aimé Césaire, he was one of the founders of the Negritude movement on the continent. In the book, which is also one of those must-gets and a must-read, Aimé Césaire points out that Aimé Césaire is talking about colonization being equated with progress, right? So typically when you talk about how damaging colonization has been, people like to say, oh, but now they have roads. Oh, but now they have the polio vaccine. Oh, but now they have X, Y, and Z. And so they look at colonization and the destruction that and the havoc that it wreaks as being a small price to pay for this quote unquote progress, right? So in the book, he says, they talk to me about progress, about achievements, diseases cured, improved standards of living. I'm talking about societies drained of their essence, culture, trampled underfoot, institutions undermined, lands confiscated, religion smashed, magnificent artistic creations destroyed, extraordinary possibilities wiped out. They throw facts at my head, statistics, mileages of roads, canals, and railroad tracks. I'm talking about thousands of men sacrificed to the Congo Ocean. I'm talking about those who, as I write this, are digging the harbor of Abidjan by hand. I'm talking about millions of men torn from their gods, from their lands, from their habits, from their life, from the dance, from wisdom. I'm talking about millions of men in whom fear has been cunningly instilled, who have been taught to have an inferiority complex, to tremble, to kneel, to despair, and to behave like flunkies. They dazzle me with the tonnage of cotton and cocoa that has been exported, the acreage that has been planted with olive trees or grapevines. He says, I'm talking about natural economies that have been disruptive, harmonious and viable economies adapted to the indigenous population, about food crops destroyed, malnutrition permanently introduced, agricultural development oriented solely towards the benefit of metropolitan countries, about the looting of products and the looting of raw materials. They pride themselves on abuses eliminated. I too talk about abuses. But what I say is that on the old ones, the very real, they have superimposed others, very detestable. They talk to me about local tyrants brought to reason, but I note that in general, old tyrants get on very well with the new ones, and that there has been established between them, to the detriment of the people, a circuit of mutual services and complicity. A discourse on colonialism, and that was from page 42. So the author is not referring to an environment in which speaking one's mind or speaking truth to power is an easy thing. We see what an intricate, carefully planned out system has been created to make folks feel like you might not want to speak up or else, right? With his statements, when he talks about colonization not being worth it, most people, he's not sharing a popular idea. He's not sharing an idea that everybody has or holds or even is going to willingly agree with, right? Most people aren't even vibrating at a high enough frequency to understand the idea. And my statement isn't an insult or an elitist view. It's just to say that people, especially in this day of age, have fallen victim to weapons of mass distraction, right? So you got social media. You see people constantly in their phones, and that's all they're doing all day, every day. Stuff is going on all around them, and all they can do is this. You see, it's to the point where many parents aren't even speaking to their children. They put television in the car and turn it on when they're going up the street to the store, as if you can't have a conversation with your child. My godchildren got in my car and asked if I had a television. I was like, no. You better look out of the window. Quit playing. And I told him, and if I did have one, it wouldn't be on. Or you see people like, I got to get home so I can watch Real Housewives of wherever. That is some unhealthy mess. You want to rot your spirit? Keep watching that stuff, right? It's just mess, and it appeals to the worst in us. So it's such a spectacle that you're looking like, what's going to happen now? Ooh, did she say that? It appeals to the worst inside of us versus us spending our time on something real. Bad food. By the time you finish filling up on all that garbage, not only is your body getting sick, but you're full and you can't move, right? And then you're in this cycle. You're full, you can't move, you're getting fatter, you're getting sicker, you're getting this, you're getting that. It's just, the food is killing us. And speaking of bad food, let's think about the rotten carrots that are being dangled in front of our faces, also known as trinkets and beads, right? In exchange for things that are made to seem like they're helpful. When I lived in Benin, there was this big, giant, very strange-looking concert hall. And when we passed it, I was like, what is that? And I remember some of my friends saying, oh, that was built for us by the Chinese. They were so nice. They came and they just built that for us. And I was like, I would probably want to look into a little more about the agreement associated with the receipt of that building. Because I doubt very seriously anybody's that nice. And sure enough, it turns out that they had to sign over an agreement that allowed China to overfish their waters. So clearly, some folks just weren't as nice and as generous as other folks might like to think. In the Teachings of Ptahhotep on page 33, he says, the fool who does not hear, he can do nothing at all. He looks at ignorance and sees knowledge. He looks at harmfulness and sees usefulness. He does everything that one detests and is blamed for it every day. He lives on the things by which one dies. His food is evil speech. How familiar is that? Can we not see that in the society that we live in today? These words are timely yet timeless. So clearly that phenomenon existed back in the day, and we can still see it and see it happening today. People revere the Real Housewives of wherever. We have children, girls who are trying to get pregnant so they could be on Teen Mom, on the Teen Mom show. What part of the game is that? Even the parenting, people are taking parenting cues and tips from these television shows, which, by the way, show constant and blatant disrespect for parents. So, and then people wonder, why are we having so many problems? So again, with this pervasive negative mentality, these minds full of Isfet as being the prevailing mentality in society these days, resistance takes courage. Resisting against what everybody else is involved in, what everybody else looks at as completely and totally normal. Right? It requires courage and good old-fashioned gumption. I like that word, gumption. Quiet. Baba Jai, he always teases me and says that I'm already a grandmother. So another thing that takes a lot of courage is changing your ways. It takes courage to change your ways. I am in the process of once again changing my eating habits, okay? I love rice and cheese and ice cream. Rice, cheese, and ice cream do not love me, because if they did, they would not treat me the way that they do. They would not treat me the way that they do. And don't get me wrong, I love kale and beets. I really, really do love kale and beets, sincerely. But I keep cheating on them with ice cream and stuff. And honestly, it's not my fault. I'll say it's not my fault. The ice cream lures me into it. What happens is I go to my refrigerator, maybe I'm looking for like frozen peas or something, and I open the door, and I'm like, I see the ice cream out of the corner of my eye, but I'm not paying attention to it. And then the ice cream just starts talking to me like, hey, girl, I see you looking at me. Come on over here so I can give you some sugar. And that's what happens. And then I end up eating the ice cream and then the kale and stuff. It's just, then, we got problems. So we're working on it, though. Right? We're working on it, though. But oftentimes, the most revolutionary action we can take is within ourselves. We have to ask ourselves on a daily basis, on a regular basis, what am I thinking? What am I speaking? What am I doing? Right? If the answer is not ma'at or working towards ma'at, you got some real work to do. Some real work to do. Resistance applied without ma'at in mind is counterproductive. Yes. Resistance applied without ma'at in mind is counterproductive. And sometimes we get into that mode. Sometimes we resist because we have become so accustomed to doing some certain things in a certain way that we just want to resist against any change to it, even if the change is healthy, even if the change makes sense, even if the change is good, even if the change is much needed. We live in a community where folks, like I said, we have a long history of resistance. And so, folks get into that mode sometimes, but sometimes it's just a hindrance. We also often hear people speaking their negative thoughts and publicizing them as being real. They're like, I'm a realist. I just know that this can't happen. But that could have been said about Jose. I love her, just like the stories I read in the Hosea and the story of Ptah-hotep and many of the other texts that I read. I love revisiting the story of the founding of Jose, which came about on faith. Just like we're remodeling this kitchen, we're doing work, because faith without work is worthless. But we also have to have a hefty amount of faith, because sometimes we just don't know how it's going to happen. We just know it's going to happen. We just know it's about to happen, period, dot, as my man Gina would say. So I get it. Resistance against things sometimes is healthy, but other times we just have to temper it a little bit. We have to manage and balance it. Often because we're in a newer sort of spiritual paradigm, resistance against our past religious experiences is something that we see, right? And I get it. Some of that stuff needs to be thrown out. Some of it really did. That being said, some gospel music is really good. Right? Some gospel music is really good. It's to the point where many white churches are hiring gospel choirs to bring people in because they understand that the music is rousing, it's good, it's enjoyable, everybody loves it, and it's very healing. And I'm not talking about the operatic, the oh, and coming and forth and down the river. Like, maybe that works for some people. But I'm talking about the real hand clapping, that music that you can feel. That feels good, right? That feels good. And instead of, looking at our structures and criticizing them, we have to look at them and analyze them and understand that there is so much Africanness in African American spiritual worship. That if we're tossing that away, then we're tossing away a vital part of our history and who we are. Why would we do that, right? We got to take it back and be like, yeah, let's taking our stuff and clean it off, right? Clean it off, make sure we get the gunk off, because we are smart enough to know exactly what are actual components of our own tradition, and then we take it and we make use of it for ourselves, right? We take it and we make use of it for ourselves. We have to be careful not to throw the baby out with the bathwater. And even that saying, you imagine you got a tub of bathwater with a baby in it and you paying so little attention that you just tossing a child out with it? That's a lot. That's a lot to just toss out a baby with some bathwater. The very saying itself is really very deep. I don't think people give it enough credit. So the same can be said for seemingly new ways of doing things, right? Too much of anything is a problem. And that's where my balance comes in. So like I said, sometimes people are resistant to new things just because they're new. And typically, people aren't willing or able to recognize that that's where their resistance is coming from. Not willing or able to recognize or admit it. Even if they know, they're like, that ain't what it is. That ain't what it is, right? I remember I had a conversation with my sister who, for a long time, was just really, for various reasons, feeling very antisocial. So I would call her and I would be like, hey, Trina, let's go out and let's do something. And she would be like, I don't feel like it. And so I would just like beg her, come on, we got to get out. It's a nice day. Let's do something. You know me and my, yeah, everything. I'm always cheerful, you know. That really is how I am. It's not an act. So I'm calling her like, it's going to be great. We can go out. We can do something. We can have lunch. It'll be wonderful. And she's like, I don't feel like it. So it got to a point where after a while, she would accept my invitations. But she would only do so after we had gone through the whole song and dance of me begging her, right? So then it became a ritual. I call, I ask her to go, she says no. I keep begging, she says no. I call her back, I'm like, Trina, I think you really want to go. And then finally she says yes, and she has a good time. And then the next time it's time to go somewhere, the cycle starts all over. And I finally told her, look at here, I'm tired of that. You know you want to go. You know you want to go. Just say yes. Because this song and dance business is ridiculous. A, it's tiring for me. B, it's kind of hurtful because you seem to be enjoying me doing this. And C, I'm going to stop in a minute. So if you really want to continue having outings, I tell you what you want to do is you want to just make it easy for me to help you help yourself. You know, that's how it gets to a point where I stop trying. I'm tired of it. I'm not going to deal with it. And look, I'm going to stop trying. So I suggest you take my kindness while it's being offered. And it worked out perfectly. Ever since, right? So what do you do when you realize you've acted as a chronic resistor, right? What do you do? How do you reconcile that? How do you fix it? Because we can have all these great philosophical and grand ideas, but a lot of times we don't know where to start when it's time to bring about change in our lives. So one thing you can do is remember the universal truth that we utter in this community on a regular basis and go ahead on and rise like Rod Daly, right? Every day is a new day. Every day is a new day. You get a brand new chance, like your own little lottery. You win every day. You ain't got to buy no ticket, right? You ain't even got to buy no ticket. You get a new day every day for free. And we each have an opportunity to make things better for the world and within ourselves by just taking advantage of the opportunity for growth in that new day. Now, in the immortal words of a rapper Ice Cube, you better check yourself before you wreck yourself. Right? That's instruction number 2. At the heart of that statement is self-reflection. Don't lie to yourself. You have to figure out where this behavior is manifested. Absolutely don't lie to yourself. and know that whatever you say is bad enough if you lying to the rest of the world about what you do and don't do. If you lying to yourself, that's a real problem. That's a real problem because you can't move, right? You cannot move if you're not even being honest with yourself. So lying to yourself will also keep you in a state of spiritual stasis, right? You won't be able to grow. You just be static, sleep, like in Planet of the Apes when he fell asleep and all of a sudden the whole planet was apes. You wake up like, boy, so much of my life has went by and I wasted so much time being bitter or angry or whatever else it is, right? So you have to also start with asking yourself why. Why am I feeling like this? Is whatever it is I'm resisting really a problem? Or is it just me and my stuff? And what can I do to work out my stuff? What can I do to heal myself so that I can stop this highly unproductive behavior? And then another thing that will help is making apologies if you need to. Own up to your actions, right? Sometimes it hurts. It's not comfortable. Shame hurts. It's supposed to. Sometimes it makes you feel sick. It's uncomfortable. And guess what? Again, it's supposed to be. It was designed that way. That discomfort that you feel when you do something wrong. You see children sometimes they do something wrong and you tell them about it and they look like they're about to shrivel up like, oh my goodness, I can't, or they're crying or whatever. Sometimes you got to just help them understand that that's all part of the process. Not in the interest of shaming the child, but to help them to understand that feeling that you're feeling right now is necessary. And when you're doing something and you feel that again, pay attention to that because it's telling you probably shouldn't be doing it. Right? Shame, and I'm not talking about that you were born a sinner type of shame. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the natural reaction you get when you are not doing ma'at. When you know you're not doing it. Right? When you're wittingly not doing ma'at. Or even if it's subconsciously. Now, when we talk about that natural reaction that your body has to doing wrong, you get to choose or heed it or ignore it. Right? The Most High has equipped you with the power of choice. You get to choose whether or not you're going to heed or ignore it. You want to resist something? Resist the urge to shun your growth by hiding from your mistakes. That's a good thing to resist. You want to just put up a resistance for no apparent reason? I'll give you a reason. Resist that. Resist that because you are hindering yourselves from your growth. That, and I'm talking when I say you, I'm talking about me too. Like all these words I speak are for me as well. Now, rarely is there healing or reconciliation without retribution. And sometimes when you go to a person and you talk to them, it's going to be uncomfortable because they're going to tell you exactly how it made them feel, exactly what you did wrong, exactly whatever. But you have to take it because you did do the wrong. And that discomfort is part of the lesson. And it's okay because guess what? After you make your admission, you'll still be breathing. The sun will still rise and fall. The earth will still be spinning. Right? Things will still be on sale for $1 at McDonald's. Stuff ain't going to change. But whatever it is, you got to make it right. And standing up in the face of our own wrongdoing can often feel as difficult as standing up in the face of our oppressor. Sometimes even more, right? We have to be really brave to be honest with ourselves. That also takes great courage. Drug addicts try to escape pain by numbing it, right? They try to escape the pain of whatever they're experiencing in their lives by numbing it. We also see the colonizers who needed to try to justify slavery by waging a global campaign to classify us as less than human. That was their effort to cull and address the pain, the dissonance that they were feeling. It's not that they didn't feel it, I don't think. It's that they were comfortable with ignoring it. That's the problem. When you're comfortable with ignoring that kind of spiritual dissonance, your soul is sick and you got some work to do, right? So understand they do that too. And then they even try to sometimes put a noble face on their actions, right? They try to say that they were doing God's work. How often are people who are resisting just for the sake of resistance, they try to make their behavior okay by saying they're protecting something. They're trying to uphold something. They're the vanguard, right? How often does that happen? It's the same thing, trying to put a noble face on Isfet. Wrong is wrong. Wrong is wrong. And praise God, because mistakes are made to be learned from. It's about whether or not we choose to appreciate and take that lesson. So remember our Hosea passage from earlier, right? Speaking is harder than all other work. The one who understands this makes speech a servant. Speech can be used powerfully for good, and speech can be used powerfully for evil. We understand that. But guess what? The nice thing is there's power in our speech. The scary thing is there's power in our speech. You can say things to somebody and a horrible thing can be said to a person. It could be a few words or one sentence or one bad name, and folks will remember that to the end of their days. You can say a kind word to somebody, might just be a couple of words, a sentence, and some people will remember that to the end of their days. It's my balance at its best. You know, what a wonderful example we have. But also it's this wonderful example that we have to follow, and we understand just how important it is that we use it wisely, that we use our powers for good and not evil. And on the Hosea on page 6, there is a passage, the first paragraph. I'll read this passage to you. It says, it's in the book of Knowing the Creations, in the section called the creation of Ra as Ptah. And it says, it is Ptah, a form of Ra, the most great, who has given existence to all the divine powers and to their essences through his heart, mind, and tongue. Thus it came to pass that the heart, mind, and tongue ruled all other members through teaching, that Ptah Ra is within every body as heart and mind, and within every mouth as tongue. So this passage is helping us to understand our God self and the power of God within us. Further down the page, it says, indeed, every word of God came into being by that which the heart and mind thought and the tongue commanded, right? So we keep these positive, healthy thoughts in our minds, and we put our words out into the universe. You know, this is another example of speaking wisely. And it says, towards the end, and thus justice is given to one who does what is loved, and punishment is given to one who does what is hated. Now know that in this instance, or in the context of the message that I'm giving today, doing what's hated includes not doing ma'at and not taking responsibility for one's actions, right? Running away from our blessing. We're not doing ma'at to ourselves. Ma'at isn't just about how we treat other people. It's about how we treat ourselves. And punishment doesn't always involve prison time, right? And as a matter of fact, you would be locked in your own personal prison. So maybe you're not in San Quentin or Santa Rita or whatever other sand they have to torture our people, right? That you can be locked in the solitary confinement of your knowledge of your wrongdoing and feel a feeling associated with your awareness of it. That's a lifetime of punishment. You know you done did something wrong and you don't do anything about it. You know you've been foul and you ain't had the decency to say, I'm sorry, my bad, I apologize, I was tripping. Whatever words you might need to get out, you know that you ain't been right and you haven't done anything to try to make it right. Guess what? A, you're going to feel that, and B, that's your punishment. But you can get off punishment if you come right, if you come correct. It may not be easy, but do it to liberate yourselves. Do it to help other people because it's the right thing to do, but also do it to liberate your spirit. Because every time you pile one of them on, your spirit gets heavier and heavier and heavier, right? Heavier and heavier and heavier. Don't be the phoenix running from the fire. Know that you can survive it and emerge glorious and victorious and stronger, more beautiful and better than before. I'm going to close with a passage from John G.M. James's Stolen Legacy. And As you know, Stolen Legacy is one of our community's foundational texts. It's also the title of an exhibition that is running right now in San Francisco, and it's an exhibition that is the first exhibition that I've ever helped to curate. So it was my curatorial debut. And it is running from now until November, I want to say. So I have some flyers, and I'll make sure that I distribute them afterwards. And also a number of folks from our community, Brother Maynu and Baba Gregg, are going to be participating in a panel discussion about the exhibit later in the year. So we want to make sure we get as many people out as possible. But, at the African American Arts and Cultural Complex. And again, I'll give the details at the end of the service. But basically, on page 105 in Stolen Legacy, James talks to us about the neophytes, those who were to become initiates. And he talks about their virtues in preparation for initiation. He said that neophytes were required in preparation for initiation. They were required to keep the following 10 commandments, underlying which were the 10 principles of virtue. Right? So the neophyte must control his thoughts, control his actions, have devotion of purpose, have faith in the ability of his master or teacher to teach him the truth. Right? Have faith in himself to assimilate the truth, and have faith in himself to wield the truth. So not just memorize this and regurgitate it, but really understand and internalize, and then be able to reproduce the truth through that person's life and the way that they live. They also said that the neophyte has to be free from resentment under the experience of persecution, to be free from resentment under experience of wrong, to cultivate the ability to distinguish between right and wrong, and to cultivate the ability to distinguish between the real and unreal. So essentially, this neophyte had to have a sense of these values. But these are all things that if we want to live healthy lives, we have to do as well. We have to do those things as well. Each and every one of us is a neophyte from the day that we are born. Right? And we are looking to be initiated into the sect of whatever the Most High has in store for us. This is hands-on training, folks. This is not the end. We move through this life and we learn and we grow and we try and we fail and we make mistakes and we do stupid things and we feel stupid and we this and we that, but we grow. But we grow. It's all part of the process, an important part of us doing what we can to become who it is the Most High wants us to be. Now, Let Your Motto Be Resistance is a very famous book, and it was written by Earl Afari, and it's about the life and the thought of Henry Highland Garnet, who was an abolitionist in the time of Frederick Douglass. And in the book, he says, Henry Highland Garnet says, "Let your motto be resistance, resistance, resistance. No oppressed people have ever secured their liberty without resistance." Let me say it again. No oppressed people have ever secured their liberty without resistance. And I'm saying, this is my quote, don't let a desire to escape your lessons rob you of the opportunity to further uncover your God self. Don't let your fear of experiencing that dissonance that comes from knowing that you've done something wrong or acted in a way that's not cool rob you and oppress you, right? Let your motto be resistance, coupled with ma'at. That's where your greatest contribution is needed. Ashe. All right. So at this time, this is the time that we fling wide open the doors of our community. As you know, we are a community of people. We cannot do our work without folks, and we need even more good folks to come and join us in our work. Folks at home, if you've never visited us, please feel free to come out. If you happen to be in Oakland, we're here every Sunday, and we ain't going nowhere, so says we. That's right. And folks in the room, if you would like to join the community, know that you are welcome, and know that the doors are not just open on Sunday. They are open every day. You only have to reach out and call us. All righty. So now we have our closing. If we can come together at the front of the room.